Why did they send me a fridge magnet? Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Now what we are having here today is yet another Hidizs DAC, but this one is a little bit different than the ones I've reviewed so far. Mainly because it has its own battery, its own power supply, so when you actually connect it to your phone, it doesn't drain your phone's battery. And to be perfectly honest, I thought, well, that will be it. Because when I looked at the box, I read the specs that are exactly the same as on Hidizs S9 Pro dongle that I reviewed, I really loved. I kept using it for myself when I go outside on the walk, etc. And when I read the specs, it's the same Saber DAC, it's the same power too, 100 milliwatts on a single-ended out and 200 on a balanced output. Yeah, that means this small device has both balanced 4.4 Pentacon out and 3.5 millimeters single-ended. Aside from that, what you can see is that there are two USB-C inputs, opposed to only one on the S9 Pro. And that is because one of these, it's a signal input that you connect to your PC or your phone. It only receives audio signal and audio information, but not the power supply. Power supply is inside. It's a 1300 milliampere hours battery, and in my experience, to be perfectly honest, I didn't measure how long I can use this without draining its battery. When I received this DAC, I charged it and then I used it quite a bit. I used it like 2 days in a row, I think at least for 3 to 4 hours. So I'm 8 hours in and it's still not empty. And if any of you tested how long actually the battery holds, please write your comments right down below the video. I'll try to find that info and just put it in the post. But when you want to charge it, you then use the another USB-C input called power. And that's all when it comes to inputs. And right on the side here we have a gain switch. You can choose to put it in a low, medium or high gain. Each of these sound a little bit different. I'll get into that just a little bit later. On the other side, you have on and off button as well as volume control buttons. So let me quickly turn it on. You'll see the green LED turns on. And now that it's on, you can connect your USB cable to your phone. It will slowly change all three of the colors available on LED, and that means the USB is recognized by your phone. Now you can play anything, you just need to hook up any headphones and that's it. Now here we come to the form factor side of things. And as you can see, this is quite a chunky piece of gear. So I suppose you're not carrying it just like this, but in fact you're folding it over like this. And to be perfectly honest, I don't consider this to be particularly convenient or particularly portable. So if I have my earphones here and then I carry these in my pockets, I don't know, do you have big pockets? How would you go about carrying these outside? Again, please feel free to comment down below in the video, because yeah, sure, I could put some rubber band around both of these, but then I would have a rubber band around my screen and I don't like that. Another thing that is also quite interesting is that you actually saw in the intro is that the back side of this unit, it's covered with some sort of, I'm not sure if is this like real leather or fake leather, but this whole side, back side, is magnetic. And that's quite interesting. I stumbled upon it by accident. When I put this DAC on top of my desktop PC, I heard click sound and I was like, what? It's magnetic. And that's actually awesome. And it would be even more awesome if all of our phones these days are not made out of some sort of glass or plastic, or even when it's metal, it's aluminum. And aluminum is not magnetic. You can see here I have Topping E30, which is made of aluminum. Nothing happens. So it's magnetic, but you need some sort of metal to actually utilize that feature. I found it quite nice, quite convenient, as I said on my PC, because I just put it down, it grips securely there, and I'm not worrying if it's going to fall down or not. But as far as phone goes, I don't know, you just have to come up with some solution yourself. Write me in the comments if you do. So how does the DH80s sound? In one word, glorious. And I kid you not, it sounds phenomenal. It has a lot of details, but those details, they come with punch and with firm control over bass region. Oh man, I love this bass. I have never heard any portable device with such good, deep, punchy, but really neatly controlled bass. Mid-range is clear and crisp, high frequencies also, a lot of details, and everything is put so orderly and has a lot of 3D information. Like I can hear echoes and tone decays and things that I've never heard at this price point. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect that. As I mentioned, just looking at the specs here, almost everything matches to Hidizs S9 Pro. And just to repeat, I really like this one. But, and that I guess brings us to our first comparison, DH80s sounds significantly better. And what do I mean when I say significantly? First thing that you'll notice is that the bass goes deeper. So if you connect any earphones or headphones capable of this deep, plodding sub-bass, you'll hear it much more with this one than with S9 Pro. But also when you go higher into the normal bass and mid-bass section, this one sounds a little bit bloated in comparison. While this one has such a firm control, such a firm grip, that in some songs that consists mainly of these mid-bass notes, you can actually think that this one is a little bit bassier. What it is, it's more mid-bassier. It has more of that plumpness in the mid-bass. This one doesn't. This one is much better controlled. It has firmer grip. It's so neat and precise, but when the actual deep bass kicks in, you hear a lot more of it. But because of that more prominent mid-bass, S9 Pro will oftentimes sound warmer. And all instruments, but especially vocals, will often sound fuller and lusher through S9 Pro. But after that first impression, initial impression, that DH80s is a little bit colder and more analytical, I actually start getting that it shows more control and more details. And because of that, everything is more precise, and soundstage is wider, it's deeper. You hear everything pinpointed better and located in space around you. Some sounds are clearly sort of melted with S9 Pro, whereas with DH80s, it feels like, oh, this is like in the back. I hear it more echoey, with more tone decay and everything. While this other tone, for example, lead vocal, is clearly in the front. It's taking the center of the stage. And once that you get used to that, going back to S9 Pro feels like everything melts down a little bit and mixes together. It's still very pleasant, it's still very detailed back, but this one is just a killer device. And the same story goes for the highest spectrum. Those highest frequencies are so clean and pristine. And everything is so well separated. And and precise with DH80s. Again, S9 Pro is not a slouch either. Actually, it's one of the best devices, especially at this price point, when it comes to details and layering and separating all these tones. But this one is just, whoa, it's not even one notch above it, it's like 2 notches at least. You can clearly hear that. And I was so amazed by it. And that's actually why I said in the thumbnail of this video that I hate Hidizs. Because I find this S9 Pro so convenient and so portable to carry around with me. And I love it. It sounds better than most dongles I've heard at this and even at higher price point. But this one is just, it's so good. And it's not that convenient. I like to wear jeans, I don't have big bulky pockets, and I don't know what to do with this one when I'm out of my house. But I want it! I so want to keep using it, it's so addictive. And I kept comparing it with other DACs and amps. And for example, if you put a stack, like a budget desktop stack, such as Topping E30 and L30, or something like Hidizs D30, which is a desktop DAC amp costing $179. This one, by the way, is $139. Hidizs DH80s simply sounds better. It's more 3D sounding. It has better controlled bass line. It has more clarity overall. It basically triumphed any comparable desktop stack. And when I say comparable, they're always more expensive than this one. And then I just kept putting it up against better and better gear. And it was somewhere around using like a decent $250 US dollars DAC with something like Xduo MT604, where I actually acquired the same sound fidelity. Of course, this type of stack would have higher power, but more grunt, it drives heavy loads easier. But if we are talking about headphones that are easily driven by this one, that's comparable sound fidelity. Finally, to significantly beat this one, to actually notice more fidelity, more clarity, and more everything, I had to go to my Topping D30 Pro and A30 Pro stack. It's a $700 US dollar stack, and at the first glance, at the first moment, it's not such a huge difference in sound quality. I attach bigger cans, something really revealing and nice like VRM1, and I start listening and I'm like, wow, this is closer than I would have anticipated. But actually, if you tune in and you start listening for details, for example, at the beginning of this song, there's a lot of surround chattering. There's a lot of spatial info there. Something happening in the background. It's like a restaurant or something like that. And then after that initial part, there is like a deep sub-bass. And then in songs like these, you notice that Topping stack has more clarity. It has more 3D space. It just recreates that. It's like a balloon that just went around you even more. Some things are coming even further away from you, and you can notice them more easily. They're even better separated. Layering is great. Pinpointing is even a little bit better. And when it comes to that deep sub-bass that I mentioned in this song, you hear more control, and it's like pitch perfect timing that Topping stack can produce. This one is lagging just a little bit. And that's not a huge upgrade also. Well, it is huge in terms of power and like the things that stack can drive. It can drive basically anything, like 600 ohms, no problems. You cannot do that with this Hidizs. But if you stick with earphones and headphones that are meant to be used with these portable DACs, man, it comes so close to these higher priced stacks that it's just uncanny. And that actually leads me to pairings and what I've tried it with. Well, I started my listening yesterday with NF Audio NM2 Plus. These are in-ears that cost $169, at least they costed that much when I got them. They're very sensitive, they don't require much power, and I didn't expect to hear any difference going from S9 Pro to DH80s here, but I did. Everything that I explained, like better layering, sound staging, more controlled bass, suddenly these didn't sound as bloated as before. Better control, better grip, everything. That was my first pair of earphones and I realized like, wow, this sounds really, really great. Then I switched to recently arrived Moondrop Kato. I think it's pronounced Kato. Beautiful in-ears, review coming soon. Again, same story. They simply sounded better, more detailed, more controlled with this one than with any other portable DAC I ever had. And then I started going to bigger headphones. For example, VRM 1. It's a great planar set. It's very sensitive also. For example, this one is more sensitive than Moondrop Kato here. So when you go from these to these, you have to decrease the volume a little bit. DH80s here can drive them in the low gain setting, like easily. And the clarity again and everything and control and sub bass is really, really good. This combo especially was one of my favorites. I just kept listening song after song, and the vocals especially sounded great. I just kept on listening and enjoying this combination. It was unbelievable. And then going to Sandy Audio iiWi here, they're a little bit less sensitive, even though on paper they're higher sensitivity than VRM1. That's not true. They're actually less sensitive, and low gain can still drive these properly, but it felt somewhat anemic in my opinion, just a little bit. So I went to the medium gain that filled up the sound nicely. Medium and high gain actually sound touch warmer and lusher than low gain setting. And finally, I had to ask my friend to bring me his Bayer Dynamics DT990 250 ohms. And I didn't like that combination that much. That's a type of headphones that work much better with big stacks that can output higher voltages. Because if you have high impedance headphones, we are talking about 250, 300, 600 ohms, you need a source that can produce high voltage if you want to make them sound dynamic and engaging and lively. With these type of cans, you see the limit of such a small portable device. With low impedance ones, very sensitive ones, this one can actually sound better than a lot of high power budget stacks, desktop stacks, as I mentioned here before, like Topping E30, L30, and so on. But yeah, I was thinking along these lines, if I had $500 to spend at the moment, and somebody asked me, take this $500 and come back with the best possible sound that I can get, at least to your knowledge, for this amount of money, I would bring him this combination back. Just insane. As I said yesterday and today, I enjoyed listening this combination so much. And just before we finish, I actually wanted to share this other line of thoughts. I was thinking, why is DH80s sounding better than S9 Pro? Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, when I take a look at the specs, it's the same DAC chip coming from Sabre. The power is basically the same on its single-ended and balanced output. I don't see anything significantly different, at least here on the box. But then I went on the manufacturer's websites and started going through the features, and I saw some things that they're bragging about, like separate high-quality oscillators. The one for 44.9 kilohertz and all of its multiplies, like 88.2, etc. And the other one for 48 kilohertz and all of its multiplies, like 96, 192, etc. Okay, that's something I didn't read in the features for S9 Pro. Maybe that's different. Also, I see they're mentioning high-quality headphone amplifiers, 2 of them, because this is a differential design. That's basically what balanced means. And then again, something like that was never mentioned for S9 Pro. And I'm supposing because of this bigger casing, they had more space to put these higher quality oscillators, to put op amps for headphone amplification. And another thing that is not insignificant at all is that this DAC amp is actually draining its power from the battery. And battery is definitely a cleaner source than many. You connect this one to your PC or to your smartphone, and then it shares power with these CPU-intensive devices, with everything else that's going on in the PC and in the phone, and a lot of digital noise is coming back through the power supply to this DAC. While this one is just taking an audio signal from PC or phone and actually taking power supply from the battery, which is much cleaner. And finally, I guess that all of these small things piled up to this improved fidelity. And I'm definitely amazed. I really, really like how this little thing sounds. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's not truly convenient for me to take it outside, because I so want to be able to do that. And I'm still going to think about more practical ways to carry it around than just letting it dangle like this in my pockets, connected to phone and to earphones and to everything, because I'm not a very careful man. I can already see that's like a disaster waiting to happen. That said, sound fidelity is phenomenal. Price to performance ratio is crazy high. I've never given any sort of award at this channel. I'm like, who am I to give any sort of awards, man? I'm just a guy trying a lot of things and sharing my opinions. But if I had an award system, this one would definitely get like highest possible award for a value for just price to performance ratio. When Hidizs told me they sent this one my way, I was like, oh man, but that's practically the S9 Pro with a battery. I was not so eager to review it, but I'm glad they did. So that's it for today, guys. Now I hope you had a good time. If you did, click that button, share it with your friends. Consider maybe becoming a patron if you want to support everything I do here at this channel. And see you next time. Bye.